to the Black Kings Crescendo podcast,
where we aim to explore the crescendo of creatives
who bring us pieces of art that move us.
I want to start out with you're from Suitland, Maryland. You're from Suitland, Maryland. Born in Suitland, right?
No, I was born in Silver Spring, and then I grew up in Hyattsville and Upper Marlboro, but went to high school in Suitland or Forestville.
Okay, so you're a PG kid, but for the most part.
PG kid. Yep.
All right. So for those who don't, that's Prince George's County. For those who don't know, I'm a Montgomery County boy, Moco, and so they're right next to each other in this DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia. And so, kind of just talk to us about what it was like growing up in PG, and not the Redskins Nation. Well, they don't go by that no more. But
right.
what was that? What was the culture like in PG for you?
PG was a culture that I kind of understood more after leaving PG for a while. You start to understand what's unique about it. I always used to think like, oh, that's just how people are. So it's a very proud and in your face culture. Like, it's definitely a thing, but it's such a thing that you think that everyone's like that, and it's further from the truth. But PG has a lot of diversity in terms of like the Black community. I think there's a lot of things that Black people can express. It's a little bougie sometimes, especially when you're definitely in the PG side, but you mix that up with the DMV because you include DC and you include other areas inside of Maryland. It's a very vast Black experience. It's the richest Black county in the U.S., and that kind of trickles down to a lot of different things. And it's only because, I mean, in that area of Maryland, I think 3 out of the top 10 richest counties in the country are in that area, like Richmond, Virginia, and what's that other, Anne Arundel, all that stuff, Alexandria. Yeah, those are the most expensive. Like top 10 richest counties in the country, and then PG is like number 56, and that's the richest Black county. So it kind of shows you the disparity already. But that's the best, in monetary wise, that Black people are doing in the country, and that speaks for itself. But with that being said, I find that there's a lot of Black culture that has, like with Howard University, that has been influenced by Maryland, I guess, slang or ways of operating or whatever, but it doesn't really get the credit. I've always seen Maryland people as people that hustle 3 times as hard, but you speak twice as less. It's like you just gotta get your bag because it's so expensive. You have to have 4 jobs just to make it ends meet. And if you would put that in any other area, it just wouldn't work. So the parents in that area really raise you to kind of know your stuff, and they really hold you to a high expectation. But you think that, oh, that's just how it's supposed to be, because everyone's doing it that way. So I found that there's a lot of examples of excellence and like opportunities to sharpen my skills in Maryland, because everyone was trying to be their best, even though we were kids. Like, it didn't really matter, but we were all just trained to have this type of work ethic. A lot of, like, even if we're slacking off, it's kind of, you compare that to some of the other places that I've seen, it's like, oh well, we weren't really slacking off, we just weren't trying to overachieve. And I think that's just the nature of what the money requires in Maryland. I found that there's a lot of creatives that think less of like being famous and more of like, let me just find a way to make this work for the community. Let me find a way to express myself without having to be a part of like the music industry. Let me just take care of my business as a creative, not, necessarily be in the top 10 of the pop charts. And I found that because I saw that, like, you would see artists doing it not for the fame. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do as a musician. I'm not out here for the fame. I'm just gonna make music in whatever capacity. If I have to teach, if I have to just produce, or if I have to do whatever. I think an artist that kind of resembles that Maryland state is Odyssey. I don't know if you know Odyssey.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's from
See,
Mo
look
County.
at Ashton.
Yeah,
He
there
knows.
you go.
He,
Odyssey, one of my favorites right now, bro. I've been
Yeah,
listening to Odyssey
dude is an
heavy.
encyclopedia,
yeah,
man.
yeah. That's
He's a
that's the guy. I mean, I think he resembles a lot of like what Maryland musicians are. Like, of course, I mean, yeah, when you're playing music, you kind of want to reach as many people as you want. But his goal isn't to be on the top 10, whatever. He's just trying to go about his business. I'm gonna take care of my business, and I'm gonna take care of my art myself. And I think that a lot of Maryland people do that, and they may not get the credit that a lot of people from like Atlanta or LA or New York may get because it's not such a big media market, but the hustle is there. And I think that kind of sums up a Maryland experience in a way.
shed some light on this for us, because I don't think, living in Ohio, I don't think Middle America knows really to the extent what it's like growing up in Maryland. Like, I go over to my cousin's house, to my friend's house in PG, to like these black neighborhoods, like Baldwin Hills type. Everybody's black and everybody's living in a big, nice house, driving the beastiest cars on one side. And then on the other side, I seen straight up hood, like, you know, black poverty going on the other side. Like,
Yeah.
kind of
And you
share some light on
right.
that.
You might catch yourself in a suburb, but it's still the trap. It's still like don't go on the
Logic.
corner, right?
He always Logic is from Gaithersburg, Maryland, the rapper, and he always talking about how hood it is, like
Yeah, you
in that
can't
apartment complex. Like, I know where
right.
that is.
Right. It's like it's a nice neighborhood, but it's
It's a
like
nice
I still don't want to be here at the
right.
wrong time because how did they get that? I mean, I don't know. I think that in Maryland there's a lot of suburbs, and that's why I said like there's that bougie element. So there's a lot of this. I think with some black people in Maryland, and I'm not really with that. That kind of sucks, but I get why because you do see a lot of black people. Like it's weird because I've yet to see a town where I go and I'm driving and it's all black people. Maybe in Atlanta too. I haven't visited Atlanta yet, but like no one expects Maryland to be like that. So when you go to PG County and you on the Beltway and you see this Mercedes, you see that busted down Camry, you see the truck drivers, you see the cops, you see the business owner, you see they're all
business
black.
owners ride the bus. He be wearing a $5,000 suit on the bus, like
for
just going to
real.
work.
The subway, right, and it's like that's just an interesting thing. I think as a young kid growing up, seeing that, I just thought that that's what the world kind of was, and that I don't know. I didn't notice that until I left, and I was like, "Oh, nah, why is this? Okay, well, this city's weird." But then I go to the next city, I'm like, same thing. This city's weird." And then it's like, "Oh no, PG County's weird for that," but the property values of those houses are so much just for basic living. Like you can have those nice, those. I don't know if I can cuss on here. I'm gonna be careful.
You good?
Be yourself, brother.
Yeah,
You can have some nice houses in like a place like Michigan, right? That cost maybe $300,000 for a really nice house, lakefront property or whatever. You go to Maryland, that house is worth $800,000 at least.
At least,
And that's the type of disparity. Like you just have to work 10 times more. So you may have a nice job. You got a nice government job or you got your own business that's pretty profitable, but you got to have some other means of income. And so that's kind of what the difference I've seen in terms of like how people work. My sister was talking about a therapist of hers where she was like a counselor at a school. Then she drove all the way across town. Like she was in Highes Building, drove all the way across town to like Crofton or Temple Hills, and then did therapy. She was like a licensed therapist, a doctor's and all that stuff. Got her own practice, got her own business, teaching full time out of counseling, and still just making ends meet. Here it's like, or other places like you making ends meet by, maybe you're working like a part-time job or whatever. You working 35 hours or something like that. You're kind of making ends meet. But there it's like you could have 2 really nice jobs and you still just like, I may need to pick up some more stuff. And I think that's crazy.
Yeah. So I know y'all both from the DMV. That's if I could afford it, that's where I would be living. Like I love the DMV. I love that culture. I love that vibe. I went to Trilectro Festival in DC like 2-3 years ago. I think Wale was the headliner. And he came out and he performed one of his hits. He played that go-go sound.
Yeah,
I was looking around. I was like, yo, like this is what they was talking about. Cause like I be listening to Chuck Brown. I be listening to all the like go-go hits. Like that's my vibe, bro. I like Afro beats.
Rest in peace.
Yes, sir, bro.
Yeah. So I love that sound. I love that style. I love like the vibe that them people have. We don't have that like that out here in Ohio. And I'm born here. Like I love Ohio, but it's the reason we here is just because the cost of living. It's mad expensive out there on the East Coast, bro. So you know what you were saying. Like I was like, yo, I could tell you got that culture through and through. But it's hard to replicate that in any other place just because they don't live like that anywhere else.
No. And Maryland has like this, like the go, like there's certain regions that have their own sound, but the certain regions that have their own genre of music, that's rare. That's rare. And Maryland has that, but it somehow gets none of the clout. I don't get it.
Pharrell was talking about it. He was saying how Virginia was so inspired by the go-go in DC.
Huh.
You know what I mean? Going up all the way in Newport News, they was taken from the Chuck Browns.
It's a line like straight from Chuck Brown all the way to like all the like clubs hits that you be hearing, like the Jersey club music, like all the stuff you be hearing in Baltimore, all the stuff you be hearing all over the place, like Baltimore, all of that starts like literally right there in PG County in DC, bro. So like that's why I say like that's the heart, man. I seen it from my own eyes. I was like, yo, when we get some money, that's where we coming.
Right.
So Jordan,
it's great. I call it the Mecca for Black people.
Yeah.
Black Mecca.
So Jordan, so you fast forward to high school, right? You getting nice, you know what I'm saying? It's a 2-part question. Number 1, when did you know you was nice? Like, yeah, I'm like that a little bit, you know, I can hang a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And when was the first person you saw? Was the first time you saw somebody who was super nice on their acts where you were like, what the, like, I remember, like, I say that because I came to Suitland High School with you, Ashton. There was an orchestra run by a conductor named Salman Dari. Yeah. And my viola professor had told me to go play with these kids. And it was like diverse orchestra, like first time I was. Right. So I go into this first rehearsal and I see Jordan in there with some cornrows sitting in his chair, like warming up before rehearsal, playing like in 5th position, 6th with like like vibrato, like like yo, and it's like this chill dude too. Like I just like, first of all, seeing a Black dude with cornrows my age playing like that blew me away. It was a mind-boggling, number 1. And then number 2, I was like, yo, this kid is nice. Like, okay, this where I'm at. Like, I was the nicest Black kid, you know, where I was from or whatever. But now I come here and everybody's nice. So who was that person for you where you first was like, yo, I'm about to really try to practice my game up?
Man, that was Johnny fucking Walker, my arch nemesis. I never felt like I was nice because I had that motherfucker in my corner all my life. And then even past, and once I started to be like, okay, you know, I know what Johnny is, I know what I am. Even then I was still like surrounded by all of these beast musicians from Virginia or from Anne Arundel County or whatever, you know, and I was just like, I'm not good, I'm trash. So I never really got that moment till I left high school when I went to school in Ohio, Baldwin Wallace. And then I was like, this is no shade to anyone there, but it was like I got there, pretty decent scholarship. I got fourth chair, and I'm like, why am I fourth chair? I should be last chair. I just can't. It's like you go to a D. I wanted to go to like the D1 school, and I went to like the D2 school, and I was already halfway through the depth chart, and I was a freshman, and I was like, okay, this ain't gonna work for me, you know. And maybe, but then it was like I realized, okay, maybe I was good, but this isn't. Oh, this may not be the area where I need to sharpen my teeth. So it's kind of like a catch-22 because like, oh, maybe you are kind of good, but also it's like this sucks. I don't know. You need to reevaluate maybe what you want to do, how you want to play music, and that's a different story. But Johnny Walker in like 6th grade was amazing. I mean, he still is a good cellist, but to me, that was the cellist. I was like, man, I can't. I like skill wise, he was always practicing his skills at like 6 a.m. in the morning. It used to blow me because I was not trying to practice that much. And I'm just like, you know, I like music classes. Is great. Johnny would come here and play my cello. He was beast. And I hated him for it all the way through high school.
I was in a string quartet with Johnny Ashton, right? He was a cellist. I was the violist. I sat right next to him. One day, this dude forgot his music. We're playing a Beethoven string quartet.
Memorize.
He said, "Oh, I forgot my music. Oh, it's okay. I have it in my head." He just started playing it, like,
bro. He was trying to troll y'all, bro. At that point, he just trying to troll.
No, he forgot. He liked that.
Yo,
like, oh,
Johnny is low key competitive too, which is funny because he'll be like, no, I bet. Oh, you don't know how to do that? Oh, okay. It would low key get me because I wasn't competitive with music at all. It was all in sports. But then when he started doing shit like that, I was like, no, you can't. No. So yeah, that's what happened. Johnny.
Talk about that. Speaking of sports, you know what I'm saying? Ashton played football in college. You know, you love football, Jordan. You're Giants fan still. I don't know how.
Hey.
Talk about, you know, just your love for sports.
Man, I think that it gets a bad rep in many ways. I mean, some of it's deserved, some of it's not, because, you know, maybe sports takes up too much money for schools, or some kids put too much attention to sports, put all their eggs in one basket. And so there's that thing right there. And they, you know, states pay for stadiums with their taxes. That's kind of weird. But past that, you know, we look at dancers. Like, I like dancers because it's like, yo, you're training your body for a very high level of expression. You know, I see football players, they're trying to express like dominance or achievement, or like some people are very artistic with the way that they play the game. And it could be basketball or football or whatever. But everyone has this same goal in sports, to win. And with team sports, I love it because it's like, well, we all have to win together. You can't just win by yourself. Some less than basketball, but still, that's still a team sport. But football, you got to coordinate all those people on the team towards one purpose. And that is much harder than you would think. And I think I vibe with orchestras for that reason, you know, because it's like, how do you get 100 people to play on the same page? Well, it's not just the conductor. It's not just the coach. It's kind of this individualized effort, and then these things in between that kind of cause synergy between everybody. And I love that about sports, and I love the discipline that it can show for yourself. You know, I love that the game is just exciting to watch sometimes, or exciting to play. It teaches physical limitations, and it teaches physical strengths. It teaches mental limitations and mental strengths. It teaches the spiritual bond that you can have with others, and how that can relate to physical manifestations of goals. There's many things that I enjoy about it, but yeah.
You're still a Giants fan.
Yeah.
Yo, hey, Joe Judge. I'm a Joe Judge believer. Yo,
you a Joe Judge fan?
Yo, look at that free agency. Look what just happened. We got Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay can play, man. I was hoping he was gonna come to the Bengals, man. I'm a Bengals fan.
No.
But
Y'all offered him
we,
like
we,
$7 million.
yeah, we couldn't afford a bowl, so we
But
had to
Joe
let him
Burrow
go.
is that guy.
Yeah, he is. He
Joe
is.
Burrow is that
I wanna pick up on what you was talking about earlier, Jordan, just with sports, like, cause I was an offensive lineman.
guy.
Um,
Okay.
so it's funny, man. Like I didn't know that you went to Baldwin Wallace, cause my little sister graduated from Baldwin Wallace,
Oh,
which is
tight.
crazy. Yeah. So small world there. Um, I when you was talking about how sports being like how you can express yourself in so many different ways, like you can express yourself through dominance. There's a lot of like similarities between sports and music because like you use all your senses, pretty much all your senses when you're playing in a group, an ensemble. You're trying to hear how it's sounding, you're feeling like how the music makes you feel, like you're seeing, you're reading the music, you're doing all these things. It's a very complicated thing to do when you're playing music by yourself, but when you coordinate that with the rest of the ensemble, is very similar to sports, especially like football on the offensive line, because nothing moves on football unless you got the big boys doing what they need to do
Correct.
and working in like tandem. So,
Correct.
that's one of the things I found fascinating about being a football player. And I would take it a step further to what you were saying about, you know, how certain schools or entities like they put so much money in the sport but they don't put that same effort into music. And I would argue like it accomplishes the same exact goal. Um, just in terms of like, I think a lot of people see sport and they look at it as something like you can do for a limited amount of time. In music, if you express yourself the right way, you can truly like you can get to your best self later on in life. It don't there is no age limit on music at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like people kind of put themselves in that box of sport thinking like, okay, this is what everybody else around me is doing. I'm only gonna have one shot to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
that took me away from my instrument for such a long time when I was in school. Um, I'm getting reacquainted with it. I'm getting back into it. And I'm like, I've always thought of myself as a musician first before I was a sports person. But sports was like the thing that was gonna pay. And it's
Right.
funny how like we emphasize that in society so much. We always do the thing that pays. And you was talking earlier about like, I just want to be somebody that creates music. Like I'm not worried about what people think about me. I'm not worried about my popularity. I'm literally just trying to sit here with the music and make something. And I think that's the distinguishing factor. I love sport, but they're not mutually exclusive. There's a lot of like common things that go with them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think there's many similarities, and some people say they spend more money on sports, but also money. I mean, when you ain't filling out stadiums as an orchestra, so you can just
Right.
shut up. You know,
Right.
that's what I say to them. But also, it's like there's so many similarities in sports too, because sports is not just about the players that are on the field. Just like music is not about the musicians on the stage. There's so many different aspects that sometimes more schools than not don't emphasize those peripheral uh, positions that add to a sport or to a successful concert or whatever. Like you got agents, you got medical health. Like Steven, you're going to a physical therapist that specializes in sports, or you have people that um, are coaches or teachers. You have people that produce. You have people that there's so many levels to it, and you can understand how they have so much. Like I learned so much from just watching sports. Like I watch the details. Like I love. I just pick one team and I watch the sports, and I love that.
Ball
I
is
love.
life.
Yeah, it's just the way that you build up a squad. It's like okay, you can't just have everybody that you want in life. You don't get everything that you get, but you can mix and match different talents that may work well together, where the sum is better than the individual parts.
Yeah, that's kind of like that expression. Like when you think about the similarities between improvisation, like some people improvise better than others, but like once you insert that level of improvisation with the rest of the band gonna sound incredible.
Right.
The same thing, like if you put Kyrie, Blake Griffin, KD, and James Harden together, like those are all like incredible talents on their own. But when you blend that together, like that team look unstoppable, damn near.
Right.
They are.
Right. Right.
So that's the beauty. Like it's like when you think about music and when you think about sport, like think about expressionism. That's kind of the whole basis that we have around this show. Like there's a lot of similarities. Like we try to bring people on here that are true expressionists and understand that to this fullest extent.
Mm.
So I remember me and Jordan, we were at a bar, and we were talking about next steps, and I asked you why you wanted to be a performer, because you were going to go to grad school for get your master's or something. Anyways, you were always doing a performance degree. Why did you pick? Why did you pick doing getting your school degrees in performance over education?
Young and dumb, but also I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't have did education either way. Maybe if I was gonna go back and get a different degree, it'd be music therapy, or like recording arts or something like that. I would go to school and 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I'd be like, oh yeah, those skills that I learned in school, I feel good. But what I'm doing right now with performance, I'm like, I learned some very valuable skills. I wouldn't have advanced in cello as much as I did, but I chose performance because I really wanted to get good at cello. Like, I saw myself as an athlete, coming out of high school. I'm going to go to this D2 school, but I'm going to get in the draft. I'm not going to be a top first round draft pick, but I'm going to be in like the 5th round. I'm going to work harder than everybody else, and then I'm going to have a name, then I'm going to be able to make a decent living. I'll stay in the league for 10 years, 15 years, and then I'll reassess what I want to do after that. I kind of approach.
That's what I always loved about you. Like I was saying, like I was contemplating going to school for composition, and you was like, "Well, are you writing?" I was like, "A little bit." he's like, "You should be writing every day. Like, you should be writing every day, Nick." Like, he's like, "Okay." He said, "Do I want to be?" You was like, "Yeah, I want to be a performer. So I'm playing all the time." He's like, "Yeah, you should be listening all the time." So talk about that mentality that you have, like to perfect your craft and to, really, really focus on one goal.
Yeah, I definitely had to chill out a little bit because I was a little bit intense. I was intense, bro. I had a very, because I grew up playing soccer, and then I loved watching those the sports, but then the work ethic, like seeing different parents work and seeing like how much effort they were putting into just getting the basics done. Like, okay, Johnny Walker is like 10 times better than me right now, but if I put this steady work, he's waking up at 6 a.m. and practicing every morning. But if I put in these 3 hours after school and then I do my homework in the middle of the night, then I could catch up to him in 4 years, But if I miss a day, it's not going to be anything. So I think I just learned from amount of, the ensembles that I was doing, and I was like, okay, this is kind of working for me. So that means if I put in more, like 30 minutes more, that means I'm going to get a little bit better. Or if I listen to this and listen to that, because I was putting some programs where usually I wasn't the best, and so I had to work way harder than everybody else just to get just to get in the door. So that mentality of like, well, if I want to do this, then just surround yourself with it a little bit each day. It will go a really long way. Just create that atmosphere of it for you, so that it's not like something that's completely out of reach. Create a habit. I think I got into habits very early on. Learned that maybe probably an older adult that I was surrounded by was like, yo, we're creatures of habit. So like building habits around it, it's not about like having these genius ideas. It's kind of like build the habit and then it'll happen. Like what they say, excellence is a habit. And it's like, so you can see like a football player on the field, Evan Ingram's bum ass. So he can like work, he has all the talent in the world, but there's no habit of him catching the ball. What's the point? What's the point? You can't block. You're very fast. You have all this talent. And I'm not coming at Evan Ingram. He probably works very hard and does it consistently. But like, if he wants to catch balls, then, you see Odell Beckham catching these like 2-finger passes. You saw him do it on the the primetime stage, but he does that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
3 hours just zoop, zoop, zoop. So that when you get on that stage and it's like a 50 chance, 70% chance that you're not going to get it, it's not so much of a thing that this is new and I need to perform at a high level. It's just like, no, I just need to do the thing that I've been doing every single day. Zoop. And that's how it comes. It's not really, I try not to make myself perform at a very high level on a random occasion. And I think that's why that work ethic, that's where that mentality came from. So I was like, okay, with the orchestral auditions, you have to perform at a very high level for 10 minutes. You know, you put your whole life behind 10 minutes behind the screen, and then you have to wait for someone to judge whether or not you can be in an orchestra for the next 80 years. So that was made clear to me in high school. It's like, that's how they audition. Okay, well, I have to prepare myself for those 10 minutes auditions. So that means I need to be practicing. I need to practice so I can't mess this up. And the only way to do that is just by putting in time. I talk in circles, I'm finding a lot. So maybe this makes sense or maybe it doesn't. But
you graduate Baldwin Wallace and you go to the Western Michigan University.
Yeah, by that point I was done with the orchestra pipe dream. I was
done.
Yeah, I was done.
What made you decide to turn the corner?
Man, leaving PG County and being around all those white people, I promise you. Figuring out like, oh shit. Because it wasn't until I hadn't been around, because PG County is all black. So I'm around all black string players. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I won't be the only black person maybe I might be the only black person in this orchestra, but I'll at least find some black people somewhere. There was a soulful symphony, there was something, you know, I'll find some black string players. I left and I was away from home for those 4 years basically, and seeing the
Cleveland
level
too, bro. Cleveland
I
ain't
know.
no joke. That code ain't no joke.
The code is different. Yes. And so I was in that room, in my room by myself, because I lived by myself freshman year, but I was practicing 6 hours a day. Because again, I was mad that I couldn't get the full scholarships to these really good schools. And I was like, I'm gonna just practice my ass off. And my teacher was great. You know, I had great teachers there. So I was like, okay, well, I'm set up for success because I got these great teachers. But then everybody else was like, you see the real culture of classical music there. I instantly got hit to it, because most of the kids that we grew up with, they loved music, but they didn't do it. They didn't want to play like they loved playing violin and all that stuff, but they hated the music. I was like, yo, I love playing cello, but the music fucking fine. The music rocks. I rock with the music. Y'all don't like it? All right, whatever. But they were very clear, like, yo, this music is trash. I like playing violin, but this music is trash. And those are all the black folk. And I was like, well, I'm good with it, you know, because I was seeing people at the Kennedy Center play, and that shit was fucking electrifying. I was like, I need to be with these people. So I did that, and I got to that school, and all the kids were just very wealthy. I've been told that they should be like, they got applauded all their life playing their violin or cello or whatever. And it was just like, there was no practice ethic. Like, I would be the only person, maybe 2 other people. Like, I had a great class, which is the only reason I had, survived at Baldwin Wallace. Like, the class that came in the same year that I came in, we had some really great players. So that was great. And I did have some other people. But in general, it was like, most people kind of wanted to go and play music because their parents told them to. They didn't know why they wanted to play music. Like, they didn't enjoy music. They didn't listen to the music. They didn't like have a goal in mind for music. Like, I went in there, I was like, yo, I'm going to be in here for 3 years. I'm going to audition for the National Symphony Orchestra, and then I'm going to be out, you know, I don't care, you know, but no one else was, there's not too many people that were like that. And that kind of frustrated me, but it was great for me. I needed that because I needed to be shocked. I needed to be like, oh, I needed kind of exposure to the world in a way, because I had been so tunnel vision, that I didn't see like, oh, this was weird. And then, so like, I would get shunned for like listening to stuff outside of classical music or like wanting to do that, and it'd be a little weird. And you know, I would just hang out with mostly just the black people on campus freshman year, but then again, I was practicing like 6 hours a day. So it was like I was not putting any time towards my classes. I did not like really interact with any of the music students. And so there was like a culture clash, and I was like, well, do I want to be with these people for the rest of my life? Like, I don't listen to their music. They don't listen to my music, you know, but if I hang with people, like if I'm hanging with the crew I'm hanging out with now, I'm not really getting the opportunities of like networking with other musicians, which is kind of what music school's for. So I'm like, this sucks. Like I have to make this decision between being comfortable and being with, you know, my culture, or like playing music, you know, and that was very messed up for me. And I had this realization, like, that's what it's gonna be for the rest of your life if you continue to try and be in like just the classical orchestra. And it was miserable for that first year. But then I was still hell bent on being the best cellist I could be. So I still practiced like crazy. And I just had in mind, like I got my mind open because musicians started arranging stuff like the Beatles for an orchestra and all that. And everybody was like, oh yeah, you could do that. And I was like, oh, y'all okay with this? So like if I play this Kanye West transcription, y'all not gonna be mad at me, right? And it was like, all right, then, you know. So then I was like, oh. And then I started researching a lot. Okay, well, started taking like entrepreneurship classes and trying to understand like what it was gonna be like business wise outside of school or outside of the orchestra. And so I started to feel like, okay, well, what do you want to do with music on your own personal level if you weren't going to be in the orchestra? You know, you just don't want to teach. You know, it's got to be something else and with performing. So I started trying to map that out. And so when I graduated BW, I went into the performance program at Western thinking like, well, this is for me to branch myself outside of classical music and find a new way to approach cello for me, and hopefully find a way that we can share with other generations coming after. So
Yo, that's deep, bro. That's I feel like a lot of black kids that end up in these spaces when they're in the classical world, like they find themselves like, all right, I'm actually nice on my instrument. I really enjoy it. I love the music, but I can't really stand the people. And as a
Talk
result,
about
like
that.
they end up giving up. They end up giving up on trying to curate their own sound because they're not getting that support. They're not getting that push to actually go do their own thing rather than just play, you know, the music of old white men. And it's not like sometimes like that music is actually like really dope. Like you were speaking on, like, you know, I was in love with Tchaikovsky. I was in love with Stravinsky. I was in love with the classics. Like that shit was like that was speaking to me. And when I would like be in my bag, like I would close my eyes and I would go somewhere else.
for real.
But when I had to open my eyes back up and I looked around who was in the concert hall, like who was wearing them tuxedos on the stage with me, and I was like, yo, like I don't know, because I would talk to my teammates about that shit, and they would come to my shows sometimes, like to support me, and they would look around, they'd be uncomfortable.
They would be uncomfortable. Right, that would happen. That happened
And
with me.
that shit be so weird because like you like, yo, y'all coming to see me and I appreciate y'all, but y'all feel like y'all can't even sit in this space just because like I'm the only one and y'all feel like y'all the only one. And it's like, yo, it's like a barrier. And it was just weird, bro. It was just real weird.
Right. Yep. It's weird. And you put it in the back of your mind when you're a kid, maybe in high school, middle school, but the older you get, you have to make those decisions that kind of help keep that or put that away out of your life. And you're like, oh, well, this is what I have to leave. There's this one experience that really has always stuck with me. At the Kennedy Center, we was playing the youth orchestra. I don't know, Steven, you might have been there. It was a side-by-side concert. And this black dude, like maybe one of the fathers or whatever, during one of the songs, stood up and started clapping. Yeah! Yeah!
Snap.
And the whole concert hall looked at him and was like,
I think I was there. I think I remember that.
and then he just walked out. And I was like, yo, this is...
That's mad awkward, bro. That's mad awkward because like he was just feeling the music, like he didn't mean nothing by it, and then they all ostracized.
That's a crazy story, yo.
Yeah. I've had something similar happen like that.
Was there a screen behind when we were playing? Like we were playing to a
I can't remember. Probably, man. I remember it was one of the most jarring thing, and I was laughing. I was like, that shit,
You would
that's
be,
dope.
you would be laughing. Jordan would be the one just like.
But then I looked over at the professional that I'm sitting next to, and they're
He's
like,
like,
that shit is funny.
Yo.
So I don't know what people was mad. They were like, "How dare he do blah 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 blah."
yeah.
And then I called myself because I did this stuff. You know, it started. You start to be a part of it, right? And then you start to pick up those mannerisms, and then you enforce it. And I saw that I did that one time, and then I've always just been like, you know what? You really need to separate yourself from this. This is not healthy.
That's real talk.
Not healthy.
So
Guilty of that.
picking up on that, bro, like I'm gonna give you a little bit of my own personal example, and then I want you to talk about yours. Like when I found my sound, because like by playing the bass, like it was pretty smooth for me to transition over into the jazz world.
Right.
And so like, you know, I had them people like when I got tired of putting on the student tie and the tux and going to play in the concert hall at the orchestra, you know, I could go in a smoke filled room, play my X and like be in the rhythm section, and I'm playing with the horns, and it's like a totally different vibe. So like they praise like that weirdness. But that was able to enforce my sound. I was able to get into improvise, and I could realize like I didn't have to have the instrument sound like one thing. So I'm curious, like, you know, when did you know that you were going to create your own sound, and when did you start to feel confident, and when did that switch kind of flip where you could disassociate from some of that awkwardness?
You know, I first eyed it in like maybe 10th or 11th grade. That's why I first eyed it. I caught it, and I was like, oh, cello. Whoa, I've never heard cello like this. Listening to like that band like Apocalyptica, like there's like an all cello band. But then I found this cat named Stephen Brown, and I saw this motherfucker. Goo goo goo. He plays like jazz cello. And I was like, yo, this is cool. But then I felt like I had to keep it silent. Like this is a secret. Like, oh, I can't share this because I have to be practicing my Dvorak concerto. Because if I don't, they gonna kick me out. You know, it's like
Right,
so. I for a long time I just shunned it. I was like, nope, you know, this is what I'm going to listen to after I go through all of my diligent listening or diligent practicing. And then, but it kept growing, you know. After I found that, I found Kevin Olusulu. After I found that, I found some other art, like Kind of Blue. That record was one of the first jazz records I heard, and I was like, yo, this is amazing. But then I grew up listening to so much of it because my pops had such a wide range of music. I had already been listening to so much like Thelonious or Herbie Hancock or Ella Fitzgerald or whatever. I mean, those are like pretty pop jazz, but like I had already listened to such a wide range of music. I was kind of already privy to it, but I didn't know it was music that I could play. The confidence to like switch to be like, oh, you can play this came in like maybe 12th, 11th or junior or senior year of undergrad, where I already started to be like, well, you need to develop your own sound. But then, and I had been on the low making these transcriptions of like the string parts out of In My Beautiful Twisted Dark Fantasy. But then I would have our string quartet that we play with come in and jam. We would just jam in the middle of the night, have some drinks, put on some like weird lights on the projector and just jam. And I was like, yo, this is so much fun. And we would do this at like 2 a.m. in the morning.
That's
and it
Jordan.
wasn't in
You can
any
find
particular
Jordan
style.
in a jam session at 2 a.m. in the morning. If you want to find him somewhere, that's Jordan. For real.
It was great.
Every chance we get when we link up, that's what
that's
we're doing.
true. Yeah.
That's what we doing.
Yeah, man, Sphinx, that was a blast, bro. I love that,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
I just want to play with good musicians. But once I was doing that, I was like, yo, I love this. Then I kind of got the confidence to be like, okay, I need to find out a way to incorporate. If I love this, this is some stuff that you need to do in the future with your music career. And then when I moved to Kalamazoo for my master's, still playing, you know, I was going to play classical for the school, but the teacher was like, yo, we'll study, you know, our stuff, but I want to give you time to kind of explore your own thing. And then I would go out to all
Shout
the
outs to the
jazz
teachers, man.
jams.
Teachers don't
Yeah,
do that
yo,
every day.
Bruce Uchimura, bro. Uch, that's the guy, bro. That's my guy. He was
Wow,
like,
I'm
so
surprised.
you're a good cellist. Good job. Good job. Now what? Who cares? No one cares if
Hey,
you play well. No one cares. And I
I
was like,
mess with him.
he's tight. I like him. Love that guy. But then I started going to all the jams, and I was like, I would just watch, listen, go home, play, watch, listen, and then people are just like, you should come, you should play, and I'm like, no. And then I had this one guy who just forced me to come onto the blues jam stage, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing this in public now. And that was kind of the beginning of where I was like, okay, well, let me just put some time into this, figuring out my own sound outside of classical and showcase and sharing that with people. So it's been recent. It's like, that's what, 5 years ago, you know? But I yeah. Because there was so much shame in like, oh, so you can't, you doing this because that's what the stigma is. You're doing this because you can't really cut it in the classical world. And it was like, no, that's not the case. Like,
That's not the case.
I auditioned for orchestra. I can get in if I really wanted to. I just don't want to do that. But even in my mind, I would take on some of that, and I was like, well, I was still going through this path of like, okay, well, just get into an orchestra, and then you could do this stuff on the side, where it shouldn't have been that. It was a long time for me because I had so much momentum going, like, I'm just going to audition for orchestra. It took a while for me to allow myself to stop and then veer off.
That's
That
crazy.
makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I'm curious, like, what kept you grounded in making your own thing, like making your own sound? And like, it's a two-part question. So like, initially, you on this path and you kind of thought like, all right, I'm not living my best life unless I end up auditioning for this orchestra and I get,
Right.
some type of accolade. So how did you stay grounded in that mission? And then once you realize like, okay, I'm gonna have to veer off of the track a little bit, how did you stay grounded in creating your own thing? Like, cause I listened to your latest project, bro, and this is wavy, yo. It's real wavy.
Yeah.
So
We're gonna
like,
get into that. We'll
yeah,
play some of
yeah.
it.
I started learning about the DIY scene and understanding like what musicians were doing outside of classical music. And I had learned, oh yeah, wait, classical music only makes up 1% of the industry in the US. It's like, oh, so what are these other musicians doing?
The musicians make it feel like it's the only elite. It's a pedestal. It's like this is their world.
Yes. Classical music really makes it feel like there's no other music but classical. And it's brainwashing. They do it so well. I gotta give them kudos to that because they really do that so well. But it's
Yeah,
not.
it's
It's
that old
furthest
money.
for real.
That's that severance package.
For real. Yes.
And
That will
Severance Hall.
set you right. Yes. That's some get out money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, somebody take a picture. You be
My man
like,
said, "Get out, buddy." Yo, that's hilarious.
yo, it's real, yo. So like they'll come around, pay for your whole life with their pocket change.
Oh God.
And so that's tough to get out of that mindset. Like, oh, okay. I think seeing musicians that don't operate in that gave me the confidence to be like, oh yeah, none of this shit matters. Also seeing that, and then I started studying more about like where all of this stuff came from. Like, why do we study cello the way that we do, or string instruments the way that we do? Why is this the only music that's in universities and all that stuff? And that kind of made me understood this complex that was built through white supremacy in order to keep this superior. Like, it was really weird how they like, because it started off being like through they wanted to get the music to be easily shared. Like, they wanted to teach this music in a way very quickly. Like, conservatories came about from housewives, like trying to make housewives more make them more pleasing to potential husbands or something like that. you know. And that's where conservatories come from. They wanted to put these women into school so that they can learn cello or piano very quickly, and they can do exactly what they could go home and entertain their family or their friends or whatever. And obviously it evolved to other things. And when they came to the US, they needed to figure out how to get the people over here civilized. So they put it into these universities, and they started making this stuff more tower of truth. This is the only way that you can do it. This is the way. Because when you teach someone how to do it, they learn it much faster than when you teach them why. Back in Europe, they were teaching them why. Like, and that's why you have so many different types of schools. Like, you have your different types of like fingerings that you use for scales, or different types of bowings, bow holds, and all that other stuff. Like, they were just experimenting. Over here, it's like, you're going to learn it this one way because this is how you're supposed to learn it. And from there, we got on track to thinking this is what music is. This is not what music is. This is just how they wanted to teach it. This is how they wanted to indoctrinate the people over in the States. So
that's like the antithesis of what you was talking about earlier with expression. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Exactly. Like, but we're getting there. Exactly.
That's the whole opposite of like what the purpose of music is, at least the way I see it.
Exactly. And then I started to find out, even the quote unquote classical cats that we worship, they weren't even thinking like this. They weren't thinking like you needed to learn all of these etudes, all of these scales and all that stuff in order to be a proficient musician. They were exploring. They weren't trying to demonstrate like, this is the only way that you can learn. Of course they had schools, but it wasn't as uniform. Yeah, it wasn't as uniform as it is today. So I learned that, and I was like, so actually me practicing the classical tradition demands me to not do this. It demands me not to go in sort of the same groove that we've all been doing, because we need to find out what else this instrument can do. So that kind of gave me confidence within the thing as I was studying that, and I was like, this is a trap. I need to get, this is trap. So that's what gave me confidence as I was in grad school to like mentally like be able to verbalize and break out of these systems that you would get trapped in when you're learning a string instrument like this.
I remember somebody interviewing Jamie Foxx like 10 years ago, and he's like, what is your thing with classical music? He's like, the difficulty with classical music, or what you would say the trap, Jordan, it's like you have this one cello concerto, but 500 people playing it, and you have to everybody's supposed to play it the same, but somebody's somehow supposed to play it better than those 500 people.
Right.
So that's the difficulty of classical music. That's right. That's all he said.
And that's the simplest explanation of where the expression and the value of classical musician is. It's great. That's a very simple way to put it, and I love that. Very clear. And it's very true. And if that's our only value, then it's great, but like, I don't need to be person 501. Right. I'm not trying to do that. And I also, what got me the confidence, like just starting to learn about musicians outside of that, seeing how talented people like Jamie Foxx are. You would think like the way that we're taught in classical music, you would think that any musician that's outside of classical music doesn't know anything. They're not disciplined musicians. They don't know how to. And then you look at people like Jamie Foxx, who probably can play classical music, just doesn't need to flaunt it, but also taught himself how to sing, is writing music, is learning how to act, out here.
Level too.
You know what I'm saying? And could do it on the drop of a dime.
He could comedy. He did play cello a little bit on that movie.
He did. So I'm like, that's what are we talking about? That tower of truth and that like kind of snobbiness, that was a little weird. And I had to, that's why learning about that stuff, like learning about how these intelligent, like Quincy Jones, like what in the world, it's like we glorify Mozart for being industrial, but do we ever look at the career of Quincy Jones or Miles Davis? Like those are some brilliant minds, and they wouldn't even talk about that in conservatories. I was like, something's wrong.
And they
But we
also
talked about.
and they also discredit them
I know,
for drugs or whatever. They're like, yeah, but he did drugs, so
I
he
know,
shot
I
heroin up
know.
his arm. So
You know, but then we glorify homeboy with the Berlioz. But
oh
he did
yeah,
heroin too. He did opioids.
yeah,
Like, he did. Oh,
that
that's
dude
how
was
we
on the
got that.
beans.
He was. So I don't get it. And there, I think that's where we can clearly see the racism in it. It's like
Yeah,
because there's so much black influence in music that's in American music. Like the
mm-hmm.
black influence is you can't run away from it in American music. Uh, Once they started doing that for that, they was like, nope, we need to shut these motherfuckers down. Like that music is bad, you know. And what happened was also like Dvorak was like he was commissioned by America to come over here and write like the culture, write American music. Like you need to tell us what American music sounds like. This this dude wrote in his journal, yo, first off, he was homesick. He wanted to go back home immediately. He's like, yo, it's weird here. He was like, yo, and then he wrote, you know, his American symphony, but then he was like, if y'all want American music, y'all need to go listen to the black folk and y'all need to go listen to the Native Americans. They're the soul of your music. And then they didn't listen. Like I read that and I was like, oh, this is madness. This is crazy. This is crazy. Dvorak, he said that, and you could hear it in his music. That motherfucker got some rhythm. He had the blues scale in there. You can't tell me he wasn't listening to black people down in New Orleans. Like he had the blues scale, and it ends the Ninth Symphony. You know, I'm like, what? That's that. They learned that he learned that stuff from Native Americans and black folks, and I was like, oh man, this is weird. I need to get out of this like now. This is weird.
It's like you use the Get Out reference twice, bro. So like I'm hearing it. It's just like I feel like black people get in this bag where like, you know, once you find yourself in that world and you brainwashed based on what they telling you, you forget like this is literally what you born with. Like you got that shit organically created in your heart, and like whatever you push out, like you already had that shit before you even got up with these folks. So like there's ways that you can become a technician, you can perfect your craft and you can practice and you can be in that world, but you don't have to be like everybody else in that world. And they try to bring you down because they can't elevate to that level. They refuse to elevate to that level, and it's just like, you know, no disrespect to any of the conservatories, but like a lot of folk that find themselves in that environment, they lose themselves trying to adapt to the rest of the crowd. And it's fucked up, man. Like I really I feel for a lot of those people that go through that.
Yep.
Yeah. I I'm always in a reconciliation mode with those, you know, with white people right now. Being in Columbus, Ohio, um, like I tell people all the time, I want to be the first black dude to forgive you for 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 racism, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to live with that hate inside of you, and that's worse than me being persecuted.
Right.
To live, to go to sleep, and that's all I say. To go to sleep and you have to live with something that you did that was hateful, because I can be oppressed and still have joy at the end of the day.
Right.
You know, based upon how I find my inner peace, however you find that. But if you can't own up to that type of hatred and that type of indoctrination, that systemic racism, that's worse than being oppressed.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right. If you
um,
can at least recognize it
at
and
least
understand.
recognize it.
Yeah.
Vibrations. You came out with a new project uh, not too long ago, maybe the last couple of weeks. It's been getting mad love on the internet. And before I ask, I want to just play a little sample of the track, man, that like like high key bring me to tears. And that's track number 7 titled.
Oh.
This joint, I mean, it has a if Bill Street could talk kind of vibe to me when I hear it, but man, just the way like the way you use your pedal, your cello, the the timbre, the textures of the track, um, you know, it just kind of like left me in my emotions in a good way. And um, after I play some, I want you to just kind of speak on either this track or also your inspiration behind the whole album, Vibrations. I think that's. I mean, I bought the album, so I don't know why it's not. I think that's a sample of it. Was y'all able to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. It
That
was just
John
getting,
wavy, bro.
it's just about to get good.
Yo, that John wavy, yo. Like I was listening to that doing some work a couple of days ago, and I was like,
Bro,
yo,
I was watching the dishes.
wavy.
I stopped watching this. I was like,
Yeah. It catches you.
Yeah, bro.
I just like
it
in my
take you to a
kitchen, just
different
like
place.
my wife's like, why you just standing there? Hey, yo, the heavens be glad.
Yeah.
The earth is
Earth be
telling
merry.
everything. But yeah, bro, like what the reverb, you know what I'm saying? The what was you on when you were creating that?
I mean, this was one that one of my influences classically for this Can't Lie is Arvo Parrott. I don't know if you ever heard him, but
Yep.
he messes a lot with like drones and stuff, and that was one of my first
Yep.
introductions to like string music that just stays on one note. Because before it's
20th
like,
century, dude.
yeah, and I'm like, I love this. And so I started messing around with drones a lot. And when you're practicing technically, I really got into long tones, and I would do long tones for like 30 minutes. Just and that sound kind of always sticks with me, especially when you do it for like 30 minutes. You really start to get a different, I don't know why, but it brings you to a different like realm or something. So when I got a loop pedal, I started opening up with that sound on my sets. When I would do shows, I would just get like a drone, zoom, and I would add more drones, and I would just add different stuff on top of it. So that's where like the concept came from. But when I was making this, I worked with this dude named Andy Catlin, or the Lasso. Great producer, great artist based out of Michigan. And I'm just recording in his room, showing him doing the songs. He press record, and I was just, all right, let's put it here, boom, let's put it here, put it here, put it here, put it here. And we will mess with some of the pedals that he has, and some of them have like these crazy delay or very ambient reverb. And so we would add things, and then he'd be like, oh, we need a little bit more bass. So then we put this synth in there, and we take the synth. He had this nice little Moog in there. So got the synth, and then messing around with the synth a little bit, and then adding a little bit of organ sound. And so that's kind of what that song, like musically, where the idea came from. And I kind of wanted it to be something that comes and goes, but it feels like it's always there. Like when you listen to it, you feel like you're still hearing it when you're not hearing the song. So
you I mean, you have like 3 albums. You have a lot of hip hop, but this song right here is like, that's why I played it out of all of the songs. I could have easily played a hip hop song. We could have been here
no,
like
that's
vibing,
fine.
but the like we love classical music too. This is not a hip hop piece. This is not a hip hop track. Like, and I think that just goes to show you the versatility that you have and that we possess. To like I said, it almost brought me to tears, like because it's the same thing you probably felt when you heard those Kennedy at the Kennedy Center. Same thing Ashton feels when he's watching like classical musicians. It's pulling out the it's tugging at the the heartstrings of your soul, and it's going beyond a rhythmic beat into this song or this type of music. This whole album is really more than just encapsulating one hip hop genre. It's going into music that really moves people and makes a difference. And I think that's, to me, that's, I love that. That's a great accomplishment, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a yeah, we listen to so many different types of song that moves us and stuff. But there's like they move us in different ways, and I feel like instrumental music will always just have that category. It can move us on this type of spectrum, and I wanted this record to be that. I wanted this record to be like a classical record that obviously it's not like just classical music, but I wanted to be like, oh, this is what classical music sounds like for Jordan Hamilton, quote unquote classical music sounds like for Jordan Hamilton.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to start concluding here, Jordan. And I'm going to let Ashton talk about our last question.
Fire.
All right, so the name of this podcast is the Black Kings Crescendo Podcast, and we kind of name it's aptly named because we got three Black Kings on here, man. I've enjoyed the hell out of this conversation just because like I don't think we talked about that feeling of isolation that you sometimes have when you get into groups, especially like when you're classically trained, whatever that means. Um, so when we get the chance to actually like kick it, talk, and share experiences, share stories, and like whether they be war stories, love stories, like just all the things that you venture out into with this music thing, like it's a beautiful thing, bro. So I don't take it lightly. Um, so this question that we try to ask all our guests, regardless of wherever they're coming from, like is what is in that crescendo, like obviously like by being a musician, what a crescendo is. It's for the audience that doesn't know, like a crescendo is like the point in a piece where you're starting from a lower volume and you're getting to a higher volume, and you're trying to you're expressing emotions throughout that crescendo depending upon how you get. So I guess the question for you is, in your personal journey, think of it kind of like a metaphor. Where do you feel like you are in your crescendo?
Mm.
Good question.
I'm definitely like here. I'm like here.
Yeah.
At the start.
If you just
Yeah.
listen to that, he just showed like he did the little crescendo sign. He was like right at the beginning. So
Yeah.
you gotta dive into that, brother.
You feel like you're at the
So
beginning.
yeah, the crescendo, is a very exciting thing in music. Like one of the most famous crescendos is Beethoven's Symphony Number 7. But it's like it's a crescendo holds excitement in it already. I mean, there's many types of crescendos, but I'm thinking like it holds like this energy, this potential energy. And so I feel like there's many things that I kind of want to do with cello, but I don't know where it's going. And crescendo sometimes is like that. Like you don't know if you're about to get to the top and then we're gonna get quiet again, or you don't know if it's just going to a mezzo piano, like half volume or forte. And I'm still kind of understanding exactly, okay, where am I going to end? I kind of know this next step. Like I'm here. I'm like at the beginning of the crescendo. If I'm gonna go, if I'm at the beginning of the crescendo and it goes high all the way to this point. I've started doing this beginning of where my childhood was like here. Childhood was like here. So then maybe I've kind of figured out, okay, this is how I want to use those initial tools to build. And so now I'm at about to get to the halfway point of my crescendo.
Mm.
And this is where you start to have a more clear idea of like, oh, it's going to end here. or oh, it's gonna end here. But there's still excitement in it because it's like, oh, I don't know what's about to happen. There's so much energy in it. There's so much movement in this crescendo already. But it's like, ooh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you putting some color into the track right now. You putting some character into it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm. That's why I say here.
yeah, yeah. It's it's an amazing journey. Just like watching, because like when you talk about music, I can already tell, like, you know, like you genuinely love this. And
Yeah.
when you genuinely love something and you do it, and it's not for the money, it's for like purely the joy, and you love it, sharing that with other people who also love music. Because like I feel like you make, like when I heard your latest project, I was like, yo, this is an album for people who love music.
Right. That's what I was
You're
trying
not,
to say earlier. Yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna, you're gonna dig it, you can appreciate it, but if you're not a music lover, you're not gonna appreciate it the way that it should be appreciated. And you know, like not taking that
Dude, even
snobbiness
people
out
who
of the
don't like
picture.
music still like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know that. I didn't know there were people like that. I was
yeah.
like, wait, you don't like music?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But some people like when you genuinely love music, like you'll love this project, and I can tell like you just got that energy about you, bro. So like I'm just so I'm thankful. I'm thankful
Hey,
to be in the space with you.
I'm just happy that I'm talking to y'all. Really, that's it had nothing to do with the music. I'm
Hold
just
up
happy to
though.
be hanging with y'all. This is fun.
So you don't think you said at the beginning, you don't think you have, in terms of your identity as a musician, you started to even kind of, I think you kind of found started to find at least a groove in that somewhat, you know what I'm saying?
I'm starting to see that there's going to be a crescendo. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Like, so
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at. It's like,
Okay.
oh, we are getting louder, you know,
Okay.
but how loud are we getting?
Okay. Before you didn't even have a crescendo on the page.
Yeah, I didn't feel it. I was still like kind of developing the crescendo. There's got to be space before the crescendo that kind of sets material up for that you want to get louder.
Okay,
So
yeah. Yeah, man. Well, plug talk real quick before we let you go. We want to plug you. We want to let our listeners know where they can connect with you, social media, website. Can you tell them about the project, where they can download it?
yeah, well, my name is Jordan Hamilton. All of my internet presence is either under Jordan Hamilton or Jordan Hamilton Music. JordanHamiltonMusic.com. You can find usually everything. I haven't put the album that I just released up on there yet, but maybe I'll do that right after this. Um, you can find that on Bandcamp.com. Just type in Jordan Hamilton. Album is Vibrations. Check it out. Show us some love. Give it a little 20-minute listen. And then if you're interested in checking out live events or um, what I'm up to in the future, you can usually check out the website. You can see that, or you can follow me on the IG, Facebook. I host a live concert every month called the Green Room Series, and I do just a live performance with myself and then another artist, and that's really it. That's what I'm up to nowadays. COVID, of course, has destroyed everything.
Gasp Collective.
Last Gasp Collective is the band that I play with. It's a 7-piece hip hop soul band. Great time. We're based out of Kalamazoo. We're about to drop another record, so you can follow
Nice.
them. Last Gasp Collective on IG or Facebook. We are, yeah, we have some concerts coming up, but nothing too crazy right now. We're kind of
Okay.
laying low.
All
Yeah.
right, man. Well, Jordan, we appreciate you for being on, man. Nothing
Yo,
but love for you.
anytime.
All
Anytime,
right.
bro.
For
Hope
sure, bro.
best is coming with your health. Ashton, it was great to meet you,
Appreciate
man.
that, bro.
Great to meet you.
Likewise, brother.
Yeah,
Likewise.
this is a good conversation. I love it, man. Sorry, I just talked. I just talked and talked and
Nah. We
That's
had
what you're
to
supposed to do. That's why we brought you on, bro.
talked.
we had to get inside a genius brain real quick.
Yes,
And
sir.
All right.
growing. But New York Giants are going for a Super Bowl this year, so just let you
Just had to
Hey,
slide out of there.
Steven, we're gonna have to edit that one out, bro. We don't want to embarrass the boy on
Hey,
the
I'm just saying, yo,
podcast.
Daniel Jones is going to put in work. He's going to shock the world. I'm telling y'all. Got my boy Andrew Thomas on the left side now. You know, we're about to
Hey,
go ham.
y'all got some pieces in
I
play,
got
but
some
it's
heat.
But
We got some heat.
but the NFC East is hot garbage juice, bro.
I
So
know, which is why
Yeah.
we about to win. Which
truth,
is why we about to win.
truth.
And then, yeah, I'm just saying. You heard it here first. Maybe not a Super Bowl, but we definitely going to the playoffs.
For sure, for sure.
All right. But these are
All
Three
right.
Kings. This is the Black Kings Crescendo podcast. We out.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.